Council budget workshop to order for Monday, September 29th, 2025. Basically on the agenda is preliminary levy discussion. Okay, want to take it away, Darren?
Sure, yeah, I can start here for a little bit. So yeah, what you have in front of you, and what was emailed to you Friday night was the preliminary 2026 budget levy summary, a revised or amended copy of the CIP requests, and then historical levy data for the last 9 years. I think tonight, kind of as a goal, would be to obviously discuss and set the 2026 proposed levy, what nonprofit grants council would like to award. If council would like to discuss or see any other changes in the 2026 CIP projects. And then, yeah, as we kind of go, I do have some, discussion on some future projects that we need to look at that aren't necessarily incorporated into 2026 budget. Items that would likely need to be bonded for, so I can talk about that as we move forward. But wherever council would like to start, I could start with the worksheets in front of you if you'd like. And first one, I guess we can talk about is the 2026 levy worksheet. That's the worksheet with the columns and numbers. So basically just kind of summarize this like I did in our email. So there's two columns, top and bottom. The top column, this is the amounts for the revenue that the city of Crookston has. It includes all of the departments. Couple things to note. Tax levy revenue for 2026, which is the highlighted green. That is the proposed or the dollar amount we would need to meet all of our expenses. A couple other things, if you notice under intergovernmental, the $5,106,050, that does include our LGA funds for 2026. Those are a total of $4,571,314. So that is included in there.
So, sorry, what else is included in that?
So in the intergovernmental, so it is, so it's the LGA funds from the building official, police department, fire department, and airport. So intergovernmental, like refunds from federal, state dollars, things like that.
So out of that $4,500,000 is LGA?
Correct, yeah. Of the $5,106,000, $4,571,000 is LGA.
So what is our, what do we need to get turned in to get the LGA?
For 2026?
Yeah, I mean, we have some things that we owe the state, right? The audit or something, right?
We just need, yes, we need to finish our audit to guarantee the 2026 LGA funds. And they have been guaranteed. The audit is in progress. We've been in we've been in steady contact with them. The funds are guaranteed for 2026. With any luck, our audit will be finished by the end of October.
So the funds are guaranteed without the audit?
Once the audit is complete, yes. But we had to file for an extension on our audit. So by doing that, we made sure that our funds are still guaranteed for 2026. And then I guess the other notable on there is you can see other revenue sources we did transfer in this budget. The proposed for $250,000, it would be from water reserves. On the bottom columns, pretty self-explanatory, but you can see those are expenditures from each respective department. Actually, all the expenditures throughout the entire city. On the miscellaneous C list to right, the green, so that's on the bottom of the top column, the $344,271. If you look in the green column, that is a breakdown of what each of those are: city hall expense, legal, ordinance, auditing, etc. You also notice on the elected officials a budget that does include currently $120,000 for the nonprofit grants as a placeholder. And then if you look at the top right, you can see 2025 levy dollar amounts, $4,486,171. for us to balance the 2026 budget. We have a shortfall of $171,570, or we would need an increase at this point of 3.83% to cover 2026 expenditures. This proposed levy also does include 1.4 million in revised CIP requests. If you remember, the original amount was 7 million some, however, about 5 million of those were street projects. But like we discussed earlier, all departments that got together last week, went through them individually. This is a revised copy, which we each respective department felt comfortable with removing from the CIPs. So again, the 2026 budget does include 1,486,000 of CIP requests.
You said 1,400,000?
Yep, it's a revised copy you have in front of you, the copy I
Just
handed
looking
out tonight.
at this, I'm just looking for that number on there, maybe.
So you won't see it actually on that number because it's embedded in each department.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's why I handed a revised copy so that you can kind of digest that. It's difficult, like you said, to pick it up from a budget because it is added as a line item.
So I'm just gonna throw it out there. If we cut the $120,000 of grants that we typically give, we only have to figure out 51,570 to get us to balance without increasing the levy, correct?
That would be correct.
So here's a recommendation of just thoughts of taking the grant down to 60,000 for everyone, moving pool management from 75 down to 50. And then also for the EDA, for those professional fees, Carrie had originally come asking for 2 and then went for 3. That would save 45. So just not completely cutting, but paring that down right there saves 135 or 130.
It's what?
That would save 130.
So then roughly 40,000 to find yet?
So I can just, just to kind of continue on this here. So if, and remember, you know, to set a preliminary levy, I think we should set a percentage above minimum operating. Again, remember, we can always decrease, we can't go up.
Right.
You know, as we leave tonight, again, we will go back. We'll have some time now to go back through budgets. Exactly like Morgan explained, we can look to where we can find cuts or other. Although there is some other discussion topics I want to bring up about some other bonding or some other costs that aren't in the levy numbers, just for fact of amounts or dollar amounts. So each levy point is approximately $44,800. So if we were to increase the proposed levy by 4%, that would give us 179,000 over the proposed, basically not increasing it. It would give us enough funds to balance the budget. Property taxes for 150,000 and 250,000 homes. Property owners' taxes for 2026 proposed would stay the same. Again, these are tax rates only applied to the city taxes. This doesn't include county or school district taxes or any special assessments that the homeowner might have on their property. So again, 4% to $150,000 home and a $250,000 home, your taxes would not increase. If we went 5%, again, for $150,000 and $250,000 home, taxes would increase about $10 per year. If we went to 8%, $150,000 home would increase about $35 a year, $250,000 home, $70 a year. And if we went to 10%, which would give us about $500,000 over operating, $150,000 home, about $56 a year, and a $250,000 home, about $110 a year.
So if we increase 4%, that's not costing the taxpayers any extra money.
At the proposed level, correct?
So that is the trajectory I think we need to try to be at. We're still getting extra money for some of the other things that we need. I'm not saying, I still think we should cut downs with some of the examples that you gave, Morgan, but maybe give us some room for other things like bonding or streets or?
So I can talk about a few of those too, just to give you the big picture, and this is gonna sound a little overwhelming, but it's stuff we've talked about throughout the year. Just again, to help you make that informed decision. So some other things to consider for 2026 is obviously remember the street projects from AE2S, the CIP study they did. In the revised CIP report that I gave you, under under street department, there is $1.7 million for street projects included in there. However, I did not add that into the budget as we would have to bond for that. So if that's something council's interested in doing, we would bond for that towards the end of this year for a 2026 bond, 1.7 million. That would be South Minnesota and Strandner and South Front and the South Front street projects. That would be the initial street projects that was advised by the CIP. We also have 5-acre housing development on Fisher Avenue from there behind Casey's. EDA is working on a 16 development home parcel for income-based homes. City match on that would be $500,000. Plan would be to have that completed or start that in 2026. We have the Tri-Valley building. We need to look at tearing down in 2026 or likely first part of 2027, depending on the dates of the Highway 2 corridor project. Last bids on that came in for about $550,000. We would need to update them to refresh in those bids. The infrastructure grant for the industrial park, the city, if you read in the papers, was awarded $3.3 million for infrastructure, sewers, roads, water. However, that is a $3.3 million match to the city. Deed is working on hopefully finding grants for at least a third to half match of that project. So, best case scenario, we would still need to match 1.65 million to 2.2 million in grants. This again would be a project that would be looking to try to do next year. There's also other options for bonds on those. We could look at a temporary bond, which would only be interest payments on a temporary bond, would provide the funds available to work on the project. Temporary bond could be amortization for 3 years, possibly extended for another 3 years, and again, only interest payments while we're using the temporary bond. At the end of that period, we could roll that over into a general obligation bond for long term. And then the Highway 2 corridor, as we all know, and again, this is for a 27 project, but we need to think about it next year, about preparing to bond for 27. City share of the entire project, roughly 6 million. Currently, working with AE2S and EDA, we have approximately 4 million of that secured, so we would still be looking at a couple $1 million we would need there. However, again, that's a 27 project, bond payment 28, interest only, and then 29 payments coming in. So currently for 2026, as we sit, we are looking at possibly bonding for, sorry, I'll find it here on my page, $5 million.
So I have some questions about that Casey's project because, I mean, Dale and Wendy, you were in that meeting with me and we've been talking about this on the board and it was never sold to us as income-based housing. It was market rate housing. So if that is what it's going.
And that you know, that might be more of it. It might be more market rate.
Was it a split between market rate and income based?
No, because our housing study says we're good with income-based. And I think as a board, we have said that that is not where we are focused on. So if that is where we are going, I'm rethinking the money that she asked for.
Well, don't quote me exactly on that. I can look up the email and try to find it.
If anything, it was like first-time home buyers and there was gonna be like a credit or something, which many cities do, and it's you live there for X amount of years, or if you move, then you pay back a certain amount.
See if I can find that real quick.
So Darren, as you're multitasking there, so when we talk about bonds, anything currently in the budget that we're discussing, doesn't apply to the bonds, so
Correct.
we wouldn't pull anything out of there, is what I think you said before, right?
Correct, and these would be 2026 bonds with payments, usually interest only, first year coming in 2027.
So that's almost a separate discussion then.
It is, but
If we stick to the nitty gritty of what's on the budget currently, and then spend our time on that maybe later, like practical. Thank you for providing the percent increases in prior years of the levy. That was helpful because it gives us some context, not complete context, but it gives us a history from 2025 current back to 2016. And it looks like in those most recent years, that's the other document that Darren gave to us electronically and a physical copy today. It was 27, almost 27.5% increase from 2024 to 2025. And then before that it was 18%, and before that it was 18 again, and then it dropped back in 2022 was 8, and then it dropped, was half of that in the previous year. So it looks like there's been a constant increase in the levy in the years that we reported here. My question is, one of the issues that we've had here that's been problematic, if you want to understand, in talking to some of you all and others who are working in the city, is that we're in a predicament of trying to balance a budget under difficult times, because in previous years, it must have been prior to this, that whatever, the levy wasn't increasing to match inflation. But that comment isn't shown here in what's been given to us, so it must be prior to 2016. So my question for the group is, when were those years? Was that 2015?
So what happened in those years, like 2017, where they were low? Here's how the budget process went. They would just, to start the budget process before the departments even went through their budgets to turn them in, the council threw out a number of, let's just say 2017, 4%. The council said, we'll start there, and we won't go any higher than that, we'll just go lower. Knowing not what the needs of the city were, and knowing how much money we were pulling out of our reserves to balance the budget. So all those years that you see where it was just, they threw out a number, not even knowing
Not knowing yet, that's right.
what the needs of the city were. Is that what you're asking, why they were so low during those times?
Well, actually, I was contemplating that, but there were still increases though.
Yeah.
Right? So even a 4% is an increase, but you're suggesting that perhaps it should have been or could have been higher, right? To account for
Yeah, because that's.
inflation, but inflation is what an average three, I mean, it's
It
been
didn't
higher
even account
lately.
for inflation, and then it didn't account for the needs of the departments of the city to try to keep up with,
It's a guess.
Even their regular maintenance.
the regular maintenance.
Should those have been closer to 8 or 9% then? Is that what you're suggesting?
Probably,
Like
yeah.
a steady 8 or 9%
Yeah.
would have held us steady.
So when the increase occurred last year of 27.45% over the previous year, was the council thinking about long-term of how high that would be consistently, and when is it gonna drop back down? So in other words, when are we gonna catch up? So when I think about making a decision here, I like to think that, like, what's happening, I don't wanna just pass the hot potato down to the next year, right? So are we saying, like, to balance this budget, which is basically we're saying if we just increase the levy, it's a little bit, 3.83%, so let's just round it up to 4%, and everything's paid for, but not including the nonprofit organizations that came up. That's a discussion we'd have to have.
And
So,
it doesn't put anything in reserve.
No,
right, and I have a comment about that, but it's, I'm just trying to get a sense of, if we're trying to build a reserve, and then thinking about, the council must have been thinking about this, of increase the percent. I would almost say, in our discussion, a point of discussion would be to think about, Crookston of the future, to build up that reserve, whatever percent that would be agreed upon by this body here, that when you extrapolate that over a course of years, if it's, I'm just gonna pull the numbers out, don't hold me on it, 2%, 3%, 4%, whatever that is, even 5%, I'm not saying that's the number, but over 10 years, that's 50%, right? 50, if you have 5% of your overall budget you're putting aside. So in this emergency situation, we have this. It's not much that first year, but then the second year is 10%, then it's 15%, then it's 20%. So eventually, you begin to have some big planning, some dream planning for what do we really want Crookston to be. And then the stewards of those monies, you use them wisely, and you only use them in the case of a real emergency or some big project that everyone agrees upon. So not gonna be whittled down to nothing just for things that come up. So I hope in our discussions today is that we're thinking about that, building that reserve, also thinking about current resources and what we wanna spend on, but also this track record of increasing percent, because we can't do that forever, because it's not fair to the citizens. But also, it's to think about what their needs are as families who live in this community, the services that they need, that they have been used to, we want them to continue, and to perfect, to improve. So what's the trend here that we're seeing? It's gotta level off at some point. It can't be 27% forever. But it can't be 0%, right? So I'd like to have the discussion focus a little bit on that and the reasons why we pick a number. And then we begin to think about cutting things if it's not appropriate. If we think, okay, that's too high because people are barely able to make ends meet when they go and go to Walmart, which I visit probably way too often. But every time I leave, it's always $100 at least. And I look at my cart, there's barely anything in there. So if people are hurting, I get that. We're all hurting, and some a little bit more than others, depending on how gainfully employed they are. So my open question to this body is, what's the long-term plan here of increase, and then what are we aiming for?
So I mean, I think there's like a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. I think over the next 5 years, I think we have to find ways to cut spending and our expenses dramatically until we can get our firm footing of where we should be, keep our streets going, keep our water going, keep the necessities going, and get our reserves back in order, and then start after that, maybe 5-year plan, because we're not gonna dig out of this hole in a couple of years. It's gonna be a while. But if we just keep doing like we're planning on doing tonight, next year's budget's gonna be the same, exact same thing. So we can't line item our way out of this. That's why I said for the past few meetings, we have to look at serious programs within the city that we probably can do without right now. And those are hard discussions to have. And no matter what you talk about, it's gonna affect people of the city in a bad way probably. I mean, I hate to keep bringing it up, but you're starting to get a good sense of where the city's at financially. So we got a pool that's dying, and we're sticking money into it. That money that we're sticking into it, do you think the pool on its current state is going to be, pick a year, I say 5 years. After 5 years, is that pool still going to be what it is today? So
That's easier to bring up.
if your answer is, and I think my answer is no, so we're sticking in this money to limp it along another year, and another year. That's just money lost over a 5-year period when we finally say we just can't keep it going anymore. So that's money that we could have stuck in other places to get us out of this hole. So and like I said, I am not an anti-swimming pool guy. It's something we need in this community, and we need to look at other ways to get a pool in this community. But this pool that we currently have right now is a Band-Aid at best.
Yeah, I've read the feasibility study that I'd asked, that you all received back in 2022. I went to the public school system and got that information regarding what the pool expenditures were in terms of utilities, staffing. And then I went to Holly and asked her, had a breakdown of what the costs were, and then did an average of those to get a sense of what it was. Yeah, it was handed over to here. If our discussion is going that way, I was trying to give context that, I don't think it's any one item though, I think it's back to previous councils, maybe not, because they were concerned, rightly so, about citizens who might, everyone should think about their taxes and what the rate is, wanna keep it low, but because that didn't happen in the past, we're sitting here. But and so that mentality has caused us to be in this problem now.
No.
I'm sorry?
There is, no, public comment in the budget workshop on the agenda, but I will give you 10 minutes at the end of the call, at the end of the budget session.
But if we're gonna pick out a, sorry, Bishop, if we're gonna begin to pick out items to say, okay, this is gonna be too costly, then I would hope that we would also think about ways to say, okay, if it's above this much, then we can't do it anymore, rather than a complete cut, right? So when, for example, when I said put money aside for a reserve to build it up over time, you need that, then it's okay, so we have this money set aside, but if something comes up, even though we're concerned about this, we're showing our due dedication and still including it in the budget, but we can't have the past behaviors that we had in the past to reduce this. So with that understanding, we move forward with including the budget, but to this point, right? And you're right, it's, you know, you look at the feasibility study, they have high priorities, second priority, third priorities, and you add up the feasibility of that, and they did this for all the buildings that were for the Crookston in there. And it's, you know, like 260,000 in what they're suggesting for that first series of items. But I think it's a la carte. I mean, if you break it down, you figure out what you really need to get that thing.
And just be aware that that does not include any plumbing.
And so the other situation we had over the years too, I've been asking what our unrestricted reserve number has been. And I've been, next year will be 7 years on the council, I've been asking for that. Probably not the first couple of years because I was just getting my feet wet and everything, but then after that, I've been asking for that number. I have not been given an accurate number except within the last year. So once we finally got that number, then everybody's like, oh, holy crap, our unrestricted reserves are terrible right now. It was all these other years here, it was under the impression that our reserves were healthy. And there was even discussion in this council that our reserves are so healthy, we need to start bringing them down. Well, once we actually found out what the reserve number was, it's like now it's almost in a panic mode. So all these years with the low percentages, that's exactly what we were doing. We were pulling everything out of our reserves.
So what was the number that was reported to you?
We never had an accurate number.
But you said, no, you just got one this last year.
I don't even remember what it is right now. Holly, do you have that number now?
No, I don't.
Okay.
So that's a number we should have.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful.
But even if you go back prior 10, 15 years prior, back lower than 2016, it was always 3%, and we always took from our reserves to balance the budget, whether it was building and grounds or we took it from water. Park board was cut a lot, some of their CIP for what their needs were. I think park board got hit the hardest back in, let's say 2008 to 2012.
Mayor, were you the one who said that we're supposed to have 40% in reserves?
That's what they recommend.
Okay.
Yeah, 40 to 45.
That gives you roughly 6 months of operations.
Then the point I was always trying to get at is our reserves at some point were continuing to grow because we would levy and then we wouldn't spend. Our expenses were down, so that a lot of that excess money went into the unrestricted reserves, causing our reserves to grow. Well, I wanted to get that number, so because if the reserve grew because we levied and didn't spend the money, I always felt that excess money that we didn't spend should be the starting point of our next year's budget, and we would have to levy less because we keep our reserve number level.
But I still think you need some of those reserves just for like projects in the future.
Well, I mean, I think you need to budget for them. That's what the budgeting process is for in the CIP. You just can't not budget, and hopefully we're gonna take it out of reserves for projects of the future. You still gotta have it on your CIP, you still gotta account for it somehow. And then if there's excess that, because we, you know, that project that we put on our CIP, we needed it sooner, then maybe you take it out of reserve for situations like that. But you can't not put it on the CIP ledger and then hopefully we'll just pull it out of reserves. I mean, that's probably another reason why our reserves are the shape that they're in, because that was the practice.
There was also a lot of confusion between the unrestricted and the restricted reserves. Because the restricted reserves would be like for the CIP, like we're putting this money aside for a fire truck, right? Like that money has to be used for what it was put aside for. Unrestricted is like this pool of money, something comes up, we can use this money there. And it really wasn't differentiated, so when we looked at it, it would be, and I'm making up a number here because I can't remember the exact number from last year. It'd be like, oh, we have $10,000 in reserve. Well, actually 9 or 10 million. Well, 9 million of that was restricted, meaning we can't just pull it and put it over here. It has to be where we had designated it in the first place.
So if one of our objectives is to build up the reserves, one of the most obvious pieces of information, we need to have that number before we really can make decisions about how much.
Yeah, Holly, can we have that number by tomorrow night?
I guess I'm not sure how accurate it would be, because I just have what was as of the end of 23, because they're in the process of doing the audit right now for
23.
Yes, we had the 23 last year.
So we'll have a 2023 ballpark estimate, but not 2024.
Correct.
Right. And I'm sorry, what is that again? Why can't we get 2024?
So,
Well, they're in the process of the audit, so if there's any adjustments or anything that moved that we took from reserves for 24 or already overspent in 24, that would come from those reserves.
Is it possible to give like a range? Like it's,
I'm not gonna speak on a range when I don't know.
okay, all right,
Yeah,
thank you,
you can't
thank
do
you for.
so that, there lies the problem. We can't have a discussion about where we would like our reserves to be, because we never know what the reserves are.
That's just very strange to me. And I would say that Holly was spent her time
Oh, yeah,
graciously with me going over some budget issues, and I thank her for that,
And this is no reflection on Holly. This has
No,
been
it's not.
well before
Yeah.
she got here.
right?
Holly's been the best, I mean,
Yeah.
not the best, but Holly's got us to a place
For
where we're
sure.
in a good
I
place.
just want to make a point of that, so
Yeah.
this is not on her. So, but it's a tool that us council people need to have in our bag
Yeah.
to make informed decisions on how we're gonna,
Right.
So all we can do then is when the 2023, we can use that as some kind of a general, it's not a perfect one, but it's something.
I don't even think you can use that as a general,
We don't know
because,
what's
No, I don't
the
think so either.
2024
because it's like,
or
how much have we pulled, nobody knows.
But you used the term 10,000, then you correct yourself to 10 million.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, it's,
Those are two different values,
yes,
right?
and I'm making up numbers and
Right.
rounding and do not go by, it could be $1, it could be $1 billion, there's that
A
range,
billion would
right?
be nice.
I mean, maybe some suggestions to that, Delane, would be, with hopes that the audit is done by the end of next month, first part of November. We'd have a 24 number that we could, look at setting a levy where there might be funds available for that.
You know, the other thing is, when you get into like November, I've always wanted to look at where we're at coming up, and I think we're getting that now, but we never got monthly statements to see how we're coming within our budget, so if we, it's like,
Question mark.
it's, yeah, and then the answer we've always been given, it says you can get it after the audit. Well, then the audit happens, it's supposed to be done at the end of June, we just can't get the numbers we need to make informed decisions on our budgets. And again, no fault to Holly, but it's just the way it's been over and over the years. And well before Holly came, we had budgets that weren't even factual numbers.
Right. Guessing numbers.
So that's, so back to your question is how do we get here? Well, that's kind of how we got here, but I'm still at a loss on what we do to fully fix this. I mean, we got a spending, I mean, for lack of a better word, we got,
Well, unfortunately, when you're, what's that old adage, when you're going out for hunting, you might be shooting for rabbits, but you're prepared for a bear, right? So you have to assume that it's zero then. Right, if you don't know, you assume the worst, it's zero. And then you plan accordingly. And then if you find out otherwise, that it's actually higher, well then it's a good thing, you plan for the worst scenario, it's a little bit better than you thought. At least that's how I would do it. And if that's the case, I would go back to my earlier comment and say, when we think about, the pattern that on here that stated of percent increases of the levy, that we think about some percent that's cautious, but also considers the building up.
well, the 4% would be getting us extra money, but not.
Not for the current budget.
Well, but we're not gonna tax our citizens anymore. It's giving us more income, but not taxing our citizens more than what they were last year.
Here's
But at-
Only the ones with houses between
4%.
But at 4%, we're still taking 250 out of reserve, water reserves.
See, I think people get upset when they don't understand what's going on. And when you look at your tax bill and you say, why here? I think when no one wants to pay more, obviously, I don't wanna pay more. But if I think about what's potentially lost, in looking forward, when you have a greater dissemination of information to explain what's going on, people have a greater appreciation and are, you still take your medicine. The medicine is, levy goes up a little bit, and then but that's what's needed to keep the city going. Does that make sense?
Well, and that's what we thought, we'll increase it here and then we'll just get into this through this 1 year at that 27% last year, we can maybe start to look at going backwards, but I don't know how to do that. Unless this council starts having discussions on expenses, I don't know how to get that to go down.
Here's where my head's at after listening to you and you is 8%, you said would be $70 a year for people with $250,000 houses.
8% on a $150,000 home would be $35 a year.
Okay,
$250,000 home would be $70,000 or $70.
so that comes to be about $6 a month for people. My recommendation would be start at the 8, knowing that that's somewhat of a digestible number for people. But also looking at cutting things down and hopefully bring the 8% down, but that at least does give us some room to balance the budget. Also look at what we can cut in the next couple months and where we're at that of what is needed and what's wanted. Or what's truly needed or how can we work with something a little bit different. But then also gives us maybe a chance to put a little bit aside for reserves for the future.
So if someone owns a
I would
house
agree with what you're saying, but the problem is if you look from last year to this year, $35 doesn't seem like a lot on that house that you referenced. But if you look from the amount that we've increased from 2022, now all of a sudden, it's a lot. So that's where, if you look from 1 year to the next, $35 doesn't seem like a lot. But if you look from 2022 and the amount that we've increased it since then, it's a lot. So
sorry, were you finished, Elaine?
yeah, I'm done, go ahead.
Sorry. Darren, so if someone has a $150,000 house, are you saying that their taxes are not increasing? They are, aren't they? They're not.
At 4%, they're not.
4% they're not, but if you go to 8%.
So a $150,000 home would be approximately $35 a year. And again, these are just city share, remember, with no assessments. And a $250,000 home would be $70 a year. And our suggestion would maybe be in line more with like Morgan discussed. The reason for it, again, I know we talked about some of these other projects that aren't maybe a today project, but something coming in 2026. And to answer your question, Morgan, that 5 acre development on Fisher Avenue behind Casey's is it's for households at or below 115% of the area median income. Meaning they can't make more than 15% more than median income. But with that, there's gonna be some expenses there, and we do have to deal with that Tri-Valley building, and I don't know exactly on timeframes if that can be an early 26 or early 27 or 26 problem. But there are some other projects that we're facing that we currently don't know all of the details about and need to work on. And I'm afraid there might be some associated upfront costs or something with that. And I think we need to leave ourselves some room for those margins.
So that Tri-Valley building, I think is huge for downtown. It does a few things for us. It will help us with that dangerous corner there, number one. Then I think it'll also help, depending on what we do with the excess land, might help us some parking downtown for the businesses that are there and so my thought is, I don't know, and I don't know what the long-term plan for the land is, but I think parking would be,
It would likely be something like that.
yeah.
I'm curious to hear, Don, Clayton, what do you all think so far? Any thoughts?
So much that I'm
Still thinking?
Still gathering.
Okay, sorry. Don?
We need more information, that's what we need. And the percentages and so forth, it's just,
What information would you like, Don?
we have enough information, it's just how we're gonna get to where we wanna go, basically.
Okay.
The 8% though, that doesn't,
No.
I don't think we get it.
I mean,
we have to choose a number.
I agree with Morgan is setting at 8 and working hard to try to get down from there. But I think we have to leave ourselves some room because we can't go, once we get more into looking at this, we can't go higher. So once we set it, it has to, so 8% gives us room. And everybody keep in mind, that's what's gonna go out on the tax statements for the truth and taxation meeting also, so.
Yeah, 8%.
And just to be clear, 8% would be roughly a $360,000 increase over our zero balance operating. So that would give us a margin of about $350,000.
the 8% would go on the proposed tax.
Correct.
Versus the final
So,
one.
I mean, does anybody here, if we're looking at, you know, trying to fix this for the future, we're broke, I mean, does anybody here think we're gonna line item our way these expenses? I mean, does anybody besides me think we have to take a serious look at expenses?
Yes, take that, we have to do that.
Well, I think.
I hear some of you say, yes, we do, but I am not hearing anybody throw anything out there for what we can do. I mean, I think we need to have some open discussions on where do we cut some of these expenses.
I don't disagree, I don't think a single item
No.
solves the problem, that's.
Well, it's like, it's more than cutting
You have to spend more time.
you know, $1,500 here and $1,500 there. It's more, it's gotta be more than that. It's gotta be some significant cuts. That's year after year. And I you know, and like I said, the only thing that just comes to mind off the top of my head is the pool. But we all know what that whole thing is like, but if anybody else has any other ideas, I would sure like to discuss them. Cause I'm at a loss.
I would also like some better information on what Carrie's plan is, because I've been on that board for 3 years and have asked on how we're planning for stuff, and what I just learned now, I feel is very different than what we've
Yeah,
discussed.
I mean, I think stuff like that is,
If we're asking for $90,000.
that's gotta be put on, I mean, that's a great, you know, suggestion. I think we need to look at that and put that on the back burner for now maybe. And I mean, we can't, I mean, these grants that we're getting are great. But when we have to come up with 3.5 million as a match or whatever, that,
For housing that may not be filled because there's already.
because there's, I mean, listen, our whole thing is more housing, but I mean,
I'm happy to put housing behind Casey's, I just want a real plan.
great, yeah, I know. So
Well, so there are a couple things, well, I think the Cheetah Board is planning to do a $50,000 purchase, right, of land.
We own the land.
We own the land.
Well, but I bet they're buying it.
No, we own the land.
No, it's already bought.
Cheetah owns the land behind Casey's.
Yeah.
Okay, then maybe I misread the email, I thought it was a final.
That's a different thing,
Okay.
that's a different thing,
Different.
yes.
That's
Okay.
totally different.
So back to the question about percentage of increases went, it was high, 27.5, before that 18, 8.4 back in time. I was trying to reason out that, so we threw out a number, 8%, but I like to see the trend where you have this peak, maybe the peak was last year, and then you level off to a point that you think is gonna be sustainable. So I don't wanna be the bad guy here, but maybe 8% isn't high enough, right? And I just wanna throw that out there, that before we just lock down a number.
We do have a ceiling on it.
Yeah, but what's
I don't know what it is.
8%, that doesn't put us over tax capacity,
I
does
think
it?
it might.
It doesn't, but that's about all you're gonna be able to do.
Okay,
So then,
So I'm sorry, what's the number that you can't go above? I guess.
Oh, I mean, I don't have.
Not that we wanna max
would
it
be
out.
I'm just
fine.
curious, I don't know.
Close it on the city.
In talking to the county today, I mean, we'd be fine with an 8 or 10, but I would suggest around
Okay.
10%.
so okay, let's
So you
play this out. So let's just say we max out our tax capacity. Next October, we're sitting here, November, September, we're sitting the same thing, oh,
Yeah.
we didn't do nothing, we gotta increase our taxes again to get by another year. We got no room, so then do we start cutting programs?
So I don't quite understand the tax capacity, so then so we're saying that's when you're at that 97% mark? Is that what that is? Is that what you're referring to? That you're
That's
using
roughly
up
where we're at
potentially
right now.
97% of the taxes you bring in to pay your budget? Right?
Of each homeowner's property
And then, because
taxes.
if we get depreciation of land, which is gonna happen, then you have a problem, you can't pay your bills.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
And that number changes with the levy amounts and, appraised property values.
And I thought that was different than actually talking about levy, which is increasing taxes.
They are two separate things, but they do work together depending on how you set the levy.
So when you talk about 8% or 10%, that's actually talking about increase of taxes when that's another term for using levy, is it not?
Correct.
So why is there a cap on that then? Because clearly you were at 27.5 last year.
So where you look at it is, I'm trying to think of how to explain this without a whiteboard. So you don't want to, so we try to say levy, not taxes, because when you say taxes, you're saying I'm increasing your taxes by 10%, which is not actually what that is. There is components between here is the levy to what a person's taxes are
That's
raised.
when Jared was explaining the
Yes.
numbers, that equals $35 on a $250,000 house.
Yes, and so based off of what all of the taxes capacity out there of all of the houses put together, right? Say $1 million. So if we're taxing up to $990,000, right, or yes, and so then we're saying there's a 10,000 difference there, right? So you can't go above what there is to tax. Does that make sense?
You can't budget for more than what you're bringing in.
Right.
In taxes, what you're trying to say, I think, right?
But the county and the state also is like, there's these many houses out there worth this property, this is how much tax base there is out there, you can't go above that.
So it must have been in previous years that you realized that it was.
It was really low, and then we jumped it.
then 23 and 24, I know for sure 23, the reason we went to 18% is that we were not in line with paying city employees. We're pretty much a training ground, I mean, right. 27, or last year at 27.45, we didn't hear, I thought the chambers would have been full, but then the county lowered the value of the homes.
Which is strange.
Yes.
Yep.
Most markets, they keep on going
It's
up.
because we have, our city has older homes, so the.
And LGA too is also, the percentage of dollars you get for LGA is also how much old stock you have in your community. That are homes that are 50+ years old.
So thank you, Mayor. So I would advocate for, if we selected it at 8 or 10% and go backwards, as going back to what you were saying, Delane, is that whatever percent, I would like to see a section of that go to reserves, untouchable. And then, so, and that would be the reason why you would have the high percent. If not, then you're gonna go to a future year and say you're at the same problem. So to go
Well,
back to your
I
comment,
don't-
you cut that out by having that money
I
aside.
don't disagree, but if we don't know what our reserves are
Yeah.
right now,
You assume it's
and
zero.
then we're pulling out of them, then what are we, I mean, I think as a council, I've always said, as a council, we need to figure out a number what our reserves need to be at, and all agree, say it's, 40-45%, that's the number, and get there. And know what that number is from year to year, so I can ask at any meeting, hey, what's our reserve number? Or look at a monthly statement, and be able to see what the reserve number is, but until that, I mean, sticking money into a reserve, which we don't know what
Yeah, that's.
the number is, I
found Jeff's presentation that showed everything. Would it be worth sending it to Keenan, or is that just something I should resend out so people can look at it?
Does it give reserves on there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth.
I mean, if you can speak on it, I'm not in a position to speak on it.
I mean, I can just repeat what's on the
Just
slide.
show the slide.
Yeah. He did list on there
Some memories might come back.
from 2020, it shows fund details for 2023 between non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, unassigned.
You just say, or you can say the numbers if you're good, if you can read the graph, if you're comfortable with that.
18.
So for fund details, everything else, for unassigned as of 2023 was 1.1 million. There was assigned, committed, restricted, and unspendable. So when we look at it, really what we'd be looking at is unassigned.
That was 2023.
Yes,
Unassigned 1.1 million.
yes. He listed it as 1.14 million for 2023.
1.4.
Cash policy says, our cash policy says 45% of operating should be unassigned. So that would mean that we, as of, for 2025, our unassigned should have been 3.6.
Is there anything for 2024?
No. This was for the truth and taxation meeting from last year.
I know we have received some reimbursement, some projects in the industrial
Yes.
park, but I don't know if that's going in unrestricted funds or where that would be, but I mean, I think our numbers are gonna be probably higher than that, but.
Yes, so then here's just for, it has the historic capacity to rate comparison. Which just shows going back to 2010 of where our tax capacity was at. What our tax rate and our tax levy was at, and that is slide 11.
What? 511.
This was actually such a helpful presentation to understand the history and where things changed.
So this email was sent on 12/7, so if anybody wants to go watch it on YouTube, it would have probably been that Monday after. So I can just send it,
12/7 of this year.
12/7 of last year, yeah.
Oh, 7.
So I can forward it to,
Yeah, thanks. Good job.
I just re-forwarded it to everyone so they'd have it on their computer too if they wanted to look at it.
I'm trying to understand, delaying your last comment about are you nervous to put money aside in reserves because you're unsure of where they're going?
I'm not nervous to put them aside, I mean, it's something we should be doing, but I think we should have a solid number of any time of the year that we ask. What is our current unreserved number?
I think there's a visibility piece that you're missing, right?
But if we're not gonna get that in the time,
Right, then,
then what do you do?
well, I mean, we still need to, I agree, we need to start replenishing our reserve, but I mean, I think we need to know what our reserve is.
And like I said, I think we can still work on that, if we set a number, cause we will have those audit numbers back before the end of the year where I think you can still make an informed decision on that, but I mean, I would also argue if you're looking at putting money in reserves, that we would owe it to water. We are still pulling 250,000 from water reserves. You're talking about putting money in reserves, but we're technically still
Yeah, we're still,
pulling from a reserve, so it's an enterprise fund, so it replenishes itself, but at the same time, I would argue we should pay that back.
yeah.
I agree.
And again, remember, these are bare minimum CIPs. I brought up these projects for 2026. 2026, you're gonna have conversation on bond payments. We are going to bring up what bonds look like in front of council for 2026. It's things we have to do. We're also gonna have bond payments for 2026, so
Those payments, Darren, were high, right? I mean,
they
it's
can
a
be
lot of
depending how much we bond, exactly. Remember, we have a 10-year, $100 million, not 10-year, but $100 million CIP from AE2S to do streets projects, and if every year we're doing 2 million or so, it aggregates and catches up with you also. So again, just to paint the big picture, this year, we balanced a fair budget, I feel. But again, you have some difficult decisions coming for next year for bonding into 27 when we're creating that budget.
Well, exactly, so it goes back to what you were saying, Delane, where like, okay, we can make whatever decision here, but then we have to think about how are we gonna pay it again, and then,
So last year, the idea was we weren't gonna do any CIPs, we weren't gonna fund any CIPs last year, and over the year, we're gonna look at how we can get better to, so we're not in the same position. But, I mean, we've had, and it's very difficult when we have different administrators come in, they come and go, and they get a plan going, and then all of a sudden their plan that they had is gone, and
Steady.
we've had different finance directors, and thank God Holly is here, she's doing an amazing job, and I
Yeah.
don't know where we'd be at right now without her. So I mean,
And also when you talk about not funding CIPs, I think last couple of years, that's where they were pulled out of reserves at some point, but we, as the department heads, and I gotta thank all the department heads for all the hard work and everything I did with this, and especially Holly. Without Holly, we could have never got here today, obviously, but if you recall, we have cut our CIPs and down from over half of what's needed. We are still gonna be lacking trucks and other equipment that each department had graciously postponed for a year to help balance the budget, as we have in years past. But like we've talked before, these are going to catch up.
yep,
And at some point, so when you talk about cutting CIPs, you cut CIPs this year, or in future, you're gonna start cutting services, because, Public Works needs dump trucks, they need vehicles, so does Park and Rec. Police departments need cars, fire trucks,
Yeah, I
et
don't think we
cetera.
should be cutting.
And this CIP, I would argue, please don't cut, because we went from 7 million to 1.4. And I can tell you that there is still some heartburn over some things that each department would love to have that they just passed on. And again, I can't thank them enough for that, myself included, so. This here, even though it's a CIP expenditure, this has to be considered minimum operating for 2026.
I think you did an outstanding job of boiling.
And it's not just me, this is a team effort, every department, Holly, everybody involved, I'm just steering the ship, but I could not do this alone. I appreciate the hard work everybody has put in, it's been outstanding, so,
but
thank
that's
you.
where it comes back to, you're looking at positions and programs. Because there's nowhere else to trim.
And just so you also know, if you remember,
And saying it, but we have to hear it, there's nowhere else to trim.
October 6th, Holly and I started meeting with each department head again, and that's where I thank them, because I don't know how the meetings were prior, but we sat down and we went through every line item of this budget, every line item, and discussed every line item with every department head, and where we could shave, as you saw, we did. Then we also went through revenues, and Holly did a great job on finding what we thought was some additional revenues that might have been missed in the past. So I can assure you, this budget, every line has been looked at 2 or 3 times. And the draft you have in front of you is probably the 4th copy from the one we started with. So again, to reiterate your point, I can assure you with full confidence, we cannot cut line items or CIP.
so I don't know, I'm sure it's possible, but it'd be also interesting to see that just the expense line item from 2016, here,
20,
from 2016, each expense, it would be interesting to see how the expenses have increased for the city.
You talking the entire budget?
Yeah. What the final number from 16, and because I'm sure it reflects the amount of the levy that we've increased, but I mean,
Are you talking with those historical projections, see what the budget amount was for each year also?
yeah, so I'm increasing obviously from 2022 to 2018, the expenses.
I don't know how hard it would be to get that data, but I would argue that levy amount is the amount to cover expenses.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, I think that would be a fair assumption that whatever that number is, that's what was needed to
so
cover.
I mean, I know, I'd just be interesting to see what our increases or what were in those expenses that increased it that much. I mean, just sitting here, I don't know, but I mean, I'm sure that, we had to get right with some of our salaries because our salaries were way lower than what the, surrounding communities were. And like you said, we were the training ground for a lot of this stuff, but what are some other things that cause our expenses to increase? And
I think some of it, if you remember, we have added staff in several departments. I don't know if these include some CIP expenditures, but
maybe we can, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe we can look at some of those expenses from 2022.
you can remember too, to compare it to these numbers
2022.
is difficult because you're looking at levy numbers, not total budget.
Right, but we had to increase the expenses to get, we had to increase the levy to meet the expenses.
Correct.
So what my question is 2021, we're at 4% and so what, I know like the IT department, we dramatically increased our IT expenses because we were just so far behind on that. So that's one area that I can think of that we really increased our expenses on. Can anybody else think of anything else other than?
I think that was probably in 2022. when we
Yeah, but
increased
that,
IT.
we didn't increase our levy that 10% just for IT. There's,
A lot of those IT large expenditures are paid out of ARPA funds.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
that's right.
so,
You added 3 positions at least here in City Hall since 22.
And again, I would have to see if CIPs were included in those, cause I know we had gone, and don't quote me on the years, but probably in that same area, 22, 3, 4, somewhere in there, all CIPs came out of reserves. So I don't know if some were added back in 24 or 25. Certainly salaries didn't double, to get us from a 2 million to 4 million.
I guess the point of the question is maybe we can look back and when we're looking at expenses, maybe we can look back at some of those past years to see where we've increased so much and maybe to try to get back to some of the past years, just to get the expenses down. I don't know.
I think we also have to, inflation really started in 21.
Yeah,
That's where the huge hike.
A lot of these numbers increase after COVID, if you see a lot of that.
Yeah, also interest rate is around mid-21, 22 when those started.
I understand your request, Lane. I will try to get that. I honestly don't know how big of a that is with
I'm just throwing it out
finance,
there.
but
I don't even know
I
if
get
it's
where your
worth
question
the
is.
exercise of doing,
I
but I'm
understand.
It's a good exercise. I'm curious, so if we go back to a number of like, let's say 8 or 10% just for discussion purposes. Let's just say you had mentioned 8%. Okay, whatever the percent. So the first 4% balances our budget, correct? Yes.
Sorry, say that again. I was writing notes.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
You're good?
No, good.
So 8%, we're just throwing that number out here, right, for levy.
Okay.
The first 4% balances our budget, correct?
Well, it'll help balance, we don't need
Still
all of the
taking
4% to balance our budget.
So correct, currently right now, 4% at the current rates would balance a budget at, yes,
Okay, so
But it
that's,
also includes the 250,000
correct. So
from the water department
which is part of the
reserves.
city.
you could argue that one way or another, but
Yeah,
at
right.
this current budget you're viewing, correct.
Okay, so thank you for that. So that's how I'm understanding this. So then let's play around with that extra 4% for a minute. What would that extra 4%, or if you want to be 10%, what would that extra amount be?
Sure.
What would we use that for?
So I can tell you what the extra amount would be.
Because the budget is already, would be covered.
So as the expense is set tonight, 3.83% would balance our budget, accounting for that 171,500
Correct.
and,
But leave us zero room for any anticipated
Right.
costs.
And I had rounded that up to 4%,
Yeah.
just for clarity.
for sure.
Yeah.
8% instead of, 8% would give approximately $358,000.
That
What was
can be
that?
Put away.
358,000 roughly. And again, remember, these are preliminary numbers from the county, so these could change hypothetically depending on different factors, but that's a close estimate.
Clayton, you were saying something?
That would put a hit on our following to put away.
Exactly. So that's one route that we could go. You
That's
could take
what-
that 4%, say that's gonna go in reserve.
Right.
Assuming the worst at zero now, which is probably higher than that. But you have something to work with, and then in the meantime, we figure out ways to have that with a great finance director here, that we would be able to have good consultation and have that knowledge to the council and others, that we know what that reserve is. Okay, so is there anything else that the 4% would be used for, I guess is what I'm asking, so.
I mean, right now, so I mean, depending on what other reductions you guys have in nonprofit grants, whatever, but like I said, I'm still concerned about like a Tri-Valley building, if there's any upfront costs for professional fees or anything like that. I mean, there's always some moving parts. I don't know that anything else will come up, but again, I would hate for something to hit the door in a month from now that we didn't anticipate for.
I feel like we know the
I
Tri-Valley.
mean, if there, some other funding, I mean, some other CIPs we could revisit, I mean, we're not saying because we have that money, we're going to spend it, that's not the goal. But it would just leave us some leeway if there was anything unanticipated that we can't see the future, we can't see everything, I think we'd get pretty close.
So asking the council on a scale of 1 to 10 of removing that Tri-Valley building, where does that sit on your guys', 10 being the highest? Where does that sit on your guys' priority list to get that?
What's the cost?
Do we have a choice?
Well, it's about 550,000.
Yeah, I think we have
It'll
a
likely be
choice.
more,
I would say all of it.
600.
because that bid is now going to have to be freshened up. but
So,
that was the last
I-
600,000.
Morgan raised a good, we have a choice, right, not to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Chuck might be able to speak a little more intelligent on that, I mean, I think the plan that the state would love to see that building gone, but I'm sure that there is a design that we could work around it, I don't know for certain, but maybe Chuck has an answer on that too, I don't know.
So then we end up with another,
Yeah, I know, I mean, I wanna get rid of it, don't.
Sorry to put you on the spot, I don't know, I mean, like, worst case scenario, if we didn't take it down, and maybe you can't answer
I
that,
know,
Chuck, I'm sorry.
Come on, Chuck.
it's kind of a double-edged sword too. Tri-Valley, where MinDOT was looking to maybe buy a part of that corner to make the radius wider.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to get that building down because I think getting that corner fixed is a huge priority for our community.
Yeah.
So besides the Tri-Valley, what else might potentially come out of those funds? Let's get them all on the table here.
Yep,
The Tri-Valley and that Casey's land, right?
Casey's land, we would have a $500,000 match on that,
That's separate then from the Tri-Valley,
correct?
okay?
Again, in 2026, again, bond projects, again, but there, I mean, without bonding, we have $1.7 million in street projects from 2026. Again, to recap, 500,000 on the Casey's project, we'll call it, the housing over there, Tri-Valley is 550. Infrastructure for the industrial park. I mean, without any matching funds or bonding, we're 1.6 to 2.2 million. I mean, there's,
So those are bonding projects, right?
if
So-
the city decided to bond for them, yes, that would, well, that would be the only way you could do it. Again, then that would become a 2027 problem that we would have to deal with in 2026. I mean, if you add our shares in that, I mean, you're looking at about a $5 million bond. I mean, over a 20-year general obligation amortization, you're probably looking at $400,000 payment a year on that. Again, very ballpark. So then come 2027, we're gonna have, if this is all the amounts we bond for and council agrees to, you could be looking at 400,000 or more in just bond payments added under the budget.
400,000.
So we're, without the bond payment, when we go down that route for these large projects that might cost 1.9 million plus. The only way to do that is through these bonds, but you have to put some money in, right, some skin in the game. We're looking at Tri-Valley's 550,000, Casey's 500,000, that's already over $1 million. So, and that's why we do budgets, right? Because even though we're doing a budget, two things that I'm hearing are things that are needed to be done, but we don't, they're not in your operating budget, right?
I feel like if I'd have put them in there, we would have a totally different conversation. That's why I'm bringing them up, because.
But no, you're doing,
Yep,
against
exactly.
you.
Yep.
It's instructed at the city.
No, I 100% get that, 100% get that. And I didn't mean that anyway if I came across that way.
Hey, I've schooled many times, and, it's fine. But, you know, if my family wants to buy a car in the future, I can't just go out tomorrow and say, here's my cash, right? I gotta plan up for it. So if your objective is to build the reserve up, then it has to be like you're buying a car. You have to put that money aside, and you don't use it for anything else. I don't care what comes up, unless it's a true emergency. It's defined what an emergency is. So Tri-Valley doesn't sound like it's an emergency. It sounds like it's something that needs to be done. I can't talk really about Casey's Land that much, but anyway,
Can you talk to is Tri-Valley based off of their current design that they wanna do?
For the downtown project?
Yes.
No. The current design has the building still there.
so it's not demolition. Okay, that's.
And you know, some of these bond payments, in fairness, depending how we do it, if we did a TIF on them, you know, they could have some repayment built into them, you know, assessments on property owners. I mean, again, these numbers I'm throwing out there are very subjective as we work through these projects. If we did a TIF loan or, you know, assessments, those aren't figured into what we're talking about. So there will be an obligation back to the city. However, I know working with EDA and other projects, we'll try to minimize those costs as much as possible. So, I'm just kind of trying to give you a 10,000-foot view of what that looks like.
Yeah,
And you see what I'm trying to do. We got this,
spend money.
we have this extra percent, and even that's not gonna be enough for these extra things that might, you know, good things in themselves, but, and so that becomes a problem.
What else is there?
Yeah,
You mentioned some great things. What else is there?
Yeah. That's it.
No, it's not it.
That's it.
If you wanna say it.
Huh?
What else
It's
is
the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, is that a luxury right now we can't afford? Again, not an anti-pool guy, but you're sticking money into something that you're not gonna be able to recoup 5 years down the road. Sticking good money into that it's eventually not gonna be worth anything. And we're not gonna have a choice when something falls out of the ceiling and hits somebody in the head or something. So, I mean, that would be a good place to start. And I know it's not a popular topic to have with some people in our community, but I mean, I mean, you bring up some good points. Is it like, is that tearing down that Tri-Valley building, is that something that we can do without? Absolutely. But there's gotta be, I feel there's gotta be more. I mean,
You gotta remember though, okay, let's say you leave the Tri-Valley building there, the city owns it, what are we gonna do with it?
yeah, I mean, it's another building and to be open about it, the same thing for the pool. I mean, we shut that down, now we got a building there that what are we gonna do with that?
Yeah.
So I don't wanna have another building in our community that's just sitting there so there's an argument against what I'm saying is, you know.
Yeah, so there's a couple options are, one is going back to something Morgan was saying earlier, you cap off the amount that you're gonna provide for that, so it doesn't bring you in the hole further.
Well, we tried
that.
Well,
we tried that last
Still
year,
went back.
but in all fairness, we tried it last year, but we set ourselves up to fail because I think we set the expenses too low to be realistic. I think we should have budgeted for what we thought was a realistic number. And I think we set ourselves up to fail on that, but again, is that money that we need to spend, I mean, in our current situation?
So I think whatever when you're in the city, you hope for things to be successful, right?
Yeah.
Right, and all the enterprises involved. So if there was gonna be some elimination of some type, choose what it is, you've locked on something. Then you do the best for it to still succeed in a way that maybe the council or the city, as we as representatives, isn't supporting it as high as it was in the past, right?
Yeah.
Which means bringing people, these are difficult things, right? You bring people to the tables. You bring, and whoever the representatives are, you bring Riverview, you bring University of Minnesota, you bring in you bring in other groups and you bring them to the table and say, this is how much it costs per year, right? This is how much it costs per year. And the city would be one of those entities that would go to the table. Just let me finish.
Okay,
Sorry. And then, but this takes time to do this. I mean, to have a direction, to have a plan to help them succeed. And if the decision here, because I'm just one of many here, is to say, we're gonna cut this out as an example, then I think it should be one that's worthy of doing that, and say, let's do it positively and say, okay, we're gonna do a handover with a certain amount, whatever that is. We wish you well, but we think there needs to be someone who's gonna spearhead this, because it's something that's important in the community, and let's bring those people together. So
Are you talking about building another,
No, I'm just saying, with the pool currently or in the future,
So-
as a master plan.
and I
Makes sense?
I think I hear what you're saying, but you're going under the assumption, I think, that the facility is worthy to stick this money into. Like, if we were able to, the amount of money to get it, so it is like millions, and what was it? Somebody help me with.
It's about 1.5 with inflation right now.
Yeah,
And
in the
then-
current building,
And that doesn't
Current
even,
building.
to rehab it back to,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
redo the pool, refurbish it.
Yes, so tier one is about $280,000.
yeah, so my concern is we're sticking all these Band-Aids into it, like, for example, if you got a car, you fix a muffler and whatever, and then by the time you get ready to sell the car, it's still only worth $300. You know, so I mean, it's not increasing the value of anything, we're sticking money in that $300 I could have used for a brand new car payment or something, I don't know, it's just, my thought is we're sticking money in to something to limp it along that we're not gonna ever be recouped when this thing finally goes totally in the ditch.
So one of the people would come up some time ago from, I don't know, one of the citizens came up, bless you, and said, let's look for what's the master plan? What's the plan? You know, for a pool, everything should have a plan, right? We have a plan for the reserve, how do we wanna build it, a plan for the pool, who's gonna take that up? Now, we know that, well, when do you work for, represent the public school system, is that the right way to say that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Trying to get the words out of my mouth. My brain is saying one thing, but and there was a handoff, right? Not too long ago, the handoff, because they knew that it was financially difficult to carry. It was handed over to the city for $1, right? Right?
So you're right, but what the city didn't do at the time, we didn't do our due diligence
Yeah.
and look at the shape of that. So had we had done that, I feel, we wouldn't have took it, and therefore they had to close the pool back then. So I think we've been limping this thing along since we've taken it over, knowing full well probably that this is I think the city took it over just to get maybe a few more years out of it as much as they could, not to get 50 more years out of it. Because the school couldn't afford it anymore. So they gave it to us for $1, which was a good deal for the school, but now we took it over and.
Needed a football.
Yeah, and I
Needed a football field.
and I was looking into it because when it was transferred over, right?
2019.
Yeah, so, and it's, you could do a similar transfer if that's what's needed, but to a party that's willing to actually.
Yeah, I mean, I brought it up in a past meeting that if anybody wants this wants this, I'm sure I'd be in favor of selling it for $1 to anybody.
So my suggestion is if that's really how the council is gonna look at that, because you're one of a group, is to make sure that they're successful, to help them along as well. Because in the long term, the city is gonna be, as you said, right?
Let's just pretend we
Pretend.
sold it to an entity for $1. And let's just say the city said, all right, we'll give you $100,000 to help you along.
Right,
That's a win for us, right?
and that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
if this is done, because of everyone's gonna be voting on this, is to think about a way to do it positively, so that it still might succeed in the long term with the plan.
Sure.
But it needs committed citizens to come forward to do that, because we're speaking on behalf of those people. But, you use the analogy of the car, but I also use the analogy of the body.
Yep.
That every single part of your body has value, right? So I could, you could lose a toe, and you could say, well, I can still get by. But toes help you to balance when you walk. So I kind of think, that the
But
pool
if you
is
use an
kind of like,
analogy of a body,
the pool is like kind of like
you're 80
a toe,
years
right?
old and you're in a wheelchair, that toe is not so important.
Well, that's true
I
if
think
you're gonna
everybody
go
still
there.
like their toes.
Either way, you like some toes, that's true.
But I don't think we can make any real major decisions.
No, I mean,
As far as
Beating us
putting
to
money
death.
into that pool until we get the assessment that we are waiting for on what it would actually cost to get that pool up to.
So there's another assessment besides the feasibility study?
Yeah.
Because the
We requested
plumbing,
a new one.
Okay.
yeah, so I mean, listen,
That's
we're gonna get an assessment, it's gonna be a lot of money, so I mean, what are
Granted,
we
it is.
talking about?
We put in a request for it with AE2S because they have experience, I think they have like 6 or 7 other pool assessments in front of us. So we are not the only city asking these questions.
So we don't know when that information is gonna come back.
No, because it turns out the other assessment did not really look at a lot of things.
they couldn't get to everything or something,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So,
They're gonna go through with a fine tooth comb and see, and give us numbers, what it would cost.
like I said before, I'm willing to do what we're doing with this pool, if it's on a short-term basis, if we can get something on the 2026 ballot to see what the appetite, just ask a question, to see what the appetite of the residents of Crookston are for building another pool. Maybe we can ask 2 questions. Are you interested in sticking more tax dollars into this pool that we have, or are you interested or none of the above? I'd like to get a full, because all these surveys that we got on the pool, you remember everybody, a huge percentage of them weren't even residents of Crookston.
Yeah.
So as much as I appreciate that they took the time to go in and fill out that survey, I don't care about them as far as when it comes to tax dollars that the city of Crookston is paying. So it's nice that outside people can come in and use the pool, I'm all for it, but they don't have no skin in the game.
They gotta pay to use it though, but yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, it was like people in Texas and New York.
It's influx of population, they come to our town,
As you
A
said,
good chunk of them didn't even live in this state or North Dakota.
but the surrounding areas, they still come to our pool.
No, I mean, like, a lot of the people had signed
Yeah.
that thing, had signed it in like,
You can make your comment at the end.
So it's similar to the reserve numbers, that without that other, what do you call it? It's not a feasibility study, it's a what study that's being done right now?
I can't remember what they're gonna do.
the pool study is what we'll call it.
But I like the idea of having this, what does the population at large say regarding this?
And that's what I agree with too, as Delane was saying, that we need to put something out for an election of, do you want a new pool? Are you willing to pay for the pool?
So, and it reaffirms,
You can't ask that on a ballot. It has to be specific.
It would have to be like,
Such as-
He's welcome to open
tax.
discussion, but he's sitting in the pew.
it would be like a tax, like,
Excuse you? Let me write your next article for
Hey,
you, why don't?
enough,
Yep.
enough.
let's get off that.
so the question is at hand is, so to somehow have the greater populace provide input to this, is what you're saying, like,
Yes,
right?
to the
And
purpose
maybe in a language that's appropriate.
Right, I just use it, that's,
That's not, quote, I think if you just say tax dollars, that people,
So
they
however-
go that way, but
However, we could do something on, I don't know.
I think it's a great idea.
I think how it has, and again, don't quote me, but I know a few people have looked into this. I think it would be, would you be similar to what the school did for the football field? It was a sales tax or a certain percentage.
So a clear
Yes.
statement regarding.
Yes,
So then,
Something to the effect, so we could get a good pulse of what the residents are feeling.
but you can't just call the state and ask them to put on it.
Yeah,
From my understanding, there's a
whatever's
whole
legal, I guess,
process.
I don't know how to do it,
Let's
but.
move on.
but let's say we do that, right? It still gives us this moment in time right now, and you still have to make a decision.
Sure.
So then you,
Right.
I mean, in full honesty, I mean, I use the pool, so you know that I'm an advocate of that, right? I mean, I teach swimming lessons and swam in college and high school, so it's hard for me to cut that toe off, right?
For sure.
Right? So I come with honesty regarding that, but I like that idea though of giving this broad statement so people can weigh in, and then the council members can feel either reinvigorated of their current position or different.
Let's move on.
Depending on what
Like
the citizens
I
say.
agree, I mean,
I'm not gonna beat
I'm
this
for
to
helping
death.
to support this, to get it a couple more, 3 more years down the road. But this discussion on this pool is not an end all. It's going to, something major is gonna happen, and whatever we budget for that expense could happen within
Right.
January, and then we stick that extra money that we budgeted in, and that's money that we're never gonna get back, it's just gone. We can't sell the parts, you know, they're obsolete, and we can't even hardly get parts, and that's my concern. We're in the situation that we're in, and we're sticking money into it where we could be putting other places. But again, I would support it if we had an end game.
I think we should move on because we're not gonna solve this today. And basically,
Well, these are discussions, to be honest with you guys, these are discussions we have to have.
yeah,
I mean, we haven't talked about it since last year when we passed the budget, and we're all quiet for a whole year until it comes up again. So we have to at some point figure this out, because sooner than budget time.
have a special meeting.
I appreciate your comment, Todd. I think you're right, time is important. I also empathize what you're saying, Delane, that to come to terms with to say, here's the end game. And with that in mind, once we hear back from the citizens, a yay or a nay, basically. So we carry it through to that point.
Yeah.
And then we hear the decision, and then we come back, so time is precious, and we say, okay, and batter that, as we are at that point, say, okay, this is how we're gonna move forward now that we've heard back from everyone. Those people who wanna respond in that process. I think that's a reasonable, and I'm sorry, in the meantime, you think about caps, right? You say, this is how much we're willing to devote to that, given our other constraints, right? I think you're agreeing with
So,
that.
do I hear what you're saying is, like, obviously, we're gonna fund it until, so whatever the legal way is to try to get something on the ballot of 26 and then once we figure out what that is, then we make a decision. We can even make it later. I mean, we can budget for it, and then if once the election happens and we get a pulse, and then if the majority of the city said, no, it's how we ask it. And then at that, we can cut the budget for the 27. We could cut it for the 27.
Yeah, then what I would do at that point, if it's a no, then you do the handoff. If it's a yes, you figure out the best way to move
You mean do
forward
a handoff to somebody that, I mean,
outside the city.
I'm open to the discussion well before then.
so they're called advisory questions, and there's a precedent of the city of Ramsey in Minnesota doing similar things to get information and interest on a new bridge or a town center.
What did you call it?
An advisory question, it is not legally binding, but can sometimes be put on a local ballot to gauge public opinion.
And so what I'm hearing now amongst the people who talked, and I haven't heard any dissents on this, is that with that kind of mutual agreement, we move forward, right? Okay.
Well, yeah,
But here,
Provided
I think you got
we get like something happening where we get, find out what the residents of the city of Crookston want.
So we.
So I'm good to support it through for 26 at this point.
Right, and then we hear back, and then go, depending on what's said there, then we then going the route of no, then the citizen has spoken saying, we don't want to do this anymore, so then we don't spend our monies on that. Hard for me to say, right?
Right.
Or yes, okay, what's the plan to move forward on that?
Right.
Make sense?
Let's move forward.
So I'm seeing nods.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Which means, back to you, Don, we can move forward.
So I mean, back to the question, I think what Morgan said earlier on in the meeting, setting our levy at 8%. And try to look at ways to cut from there. Is everybody good with that?
That would be our recommendation, and like I said, we can have future comments and with the goal of getting it as low as we can, or whatever council direction is at that point. Look, you go back and look at some cuts or other things. I mean, we still, probably not a discussion for tonight if we're just gonna set the levy at that recommendation. You know, there is the nonprofit grants. I mean, there's our areas like Morgan pointed out, and I have other ideas too, where we can shave costs or reduce costs. But again, right now, this preliminary budget does include $120,000 for nonprofit grants, additional money for the pool, and some other areas. So
We're gonna say 8% then.
if that's a council direction, that would be our suggestion. Yep.
So consensus is 8% preliminary levy, and we can go down, but we can't go up.
Right.
And that'll go on your proposed property tax. It won't be the final you see, and I can't remember when.
Yeah.
Final levy's gotta be set in December.
Right.
Yeah, and well, I probably won't have the date exactly, but in December, I believe possibly the first, I'd have to double check that, but we'll have a truth and taxation
Yep,
hearing.
yep.
And then like you said, from there, public comment, and we'll certify a levy, whatever that number is, by the end of the month.
Darren, why did you say in the comment, if I heard you correctly, there are additional monies that are needed for the pool, you just said that aren't in the budget? Did I hear
If you
right?
remember when we went through the budget workshops, we added 25,000 into building repairs and maintenance.
Okay, that's not in the budget, that's not
It is in
Parks
the
and Rec,
budget.
it is in the budget.
Correct, it is.
Okay. So that wouldn't come out of that, I'm still thinking about that $358,000 is kind of where my brain is now.
Right, so if it was a decision to leave it or remove it, again, which we can discuss, then it would reduce that amount by 25,000.
Okay.
What would it bring it to then?
I mean, if we're using the 350,000.
That was an extra $25,000 on top of it?
Correct, yeah, it would just reduce it by $25,000,
So, but there's still some monies in for repairs.
$25,000.
This was
It's a total of 50?
We bring it back down to
Yeah, 25, correct. Originally it was 25, we added 25 to bring it to 50, so, yes, sorry again, I didn't explain that very well.
No,
No, we did fine.
Sometimes I just assume because my brain is working 3 steps ahead, I apologize.
It's all right.
So going back to the nonprofits then, so how are we dealing with that? Where are we on this? So we have, the big ones are Tri-Valley, we have the Casey land, and we have the nonprofits, right? Those are, that's those three,
No,
not counting bonds.
Casey land would be part of the,
That's
That's not,
no,
that's not, okay, so,
I can go through them if you'd like.
Yeah.
well, the things that might come out of 358,000, yeah, right?
Go ahead.
Is that what everyone is thinking of?
So we have slotted 120,000 in there right now, as we discussed, if you remember at the last
For the
nonprofit.
nonprofit, that's the placeholder we said, right?
Correct, that's a
Right.
placeholder council set, yep.
Okay. And anything potentially else would come out of that 358,000, again, starting with that 8% that we're talking about, this is the money that would be above balancing the budget.
Yeah, that 120 wouldn't come out of that money above.
It would come out of 358,
It's
isn't it?
already figured in.
It's already figured in.
Yeah.
So the
It is already
358 is clear money then, correct?
The 358 would not, so let me pull the number up again, so the 358.
So when I,
If we set it at that number right now, at 8%,
right,
358 roughly minus, if we left the budget as is, I mean, that would leave 186,400 that,
186.
if we left it at 8%.
And I'm sorry, how did you go from 358 to 186?
Cause I took the 171,570 off of that at the current budget.
Did you borrow from water?
Cause I don't have any direction on reducing the budget right now. So I took the 8%, 358,000, and I subtracted the difference of the 2026 budget of 171,570.
Cause we still have to cut 171,000 out of our current budget.
So if we did that, then that leaves, if this played out as a possible scenario, it balances our current budget, you're at 8% levy, and you have 186,000 that goes to reserves. Am I understanding that correct?
It would be $186 for you to decide if you wanna pay back water or something else, correct?
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, we good at 8%? Comments, Bishop?
Definitely.
Well, hold on, I'm not trying to. Though you had asked that we have a conversation about the grants and who we wanted to give them to, is that?
Well,
something
if we are going to, I mean, you certainly can, that's council's decision, I mean, if we are gonna set it at that, at 8%, obviously that does include the funds you add, or the placeholder you asked for at the nonprofit, we could discuss them at a different meeting if you'd like, a
Yeah,
different
we
way.
got till the end of the year to discuss them, right,
Correct,
basically?
cause they're 2026
But
grants,
then
so
I
we
just
could
asked
bring
that
that
we
up.
don't announce
later date.
anything or be like, this is what anybody's getting.
Right.
Or who's getting anything.
It's undecided, just undecided right now with,
And obviously you could award more if you so choose.
Right.
Yeah, cause we're still working, we're trying to work our way down still.
We just, as if you remember, we agreed to put that number as a placeholder, it could increase or decrease upon direction of council.
Kara can go first, if you guys have any questions.
go ahead, I'll give you 10 minutes.
I've watched the last two meetings, Bishop Jensen, 314 Leonard Avenue, Ward 1, via YouTube. And the charity discussions last time were a little disheartening, mostly just due to attendance, and you guys not valuing the Humane Society. And I kind of felt the lack of value for the homeless shelter. Those two are, I like to call them security blankets for the community. The homeless shelter keeps people off our streets in this last year, and I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat anything here or talk around graphic details, but Crookston has ensued a death toll of civilians here, and I believe it stems from poverty-stricken people and displacement are the two consensus of that. Our community is kind of looked at as bloody right now in some ways. And so to be sticking money into reserves as people, you know, are deeply considering fleeing our community just seems unnecessary. So I would, you know, encourage anybody with a heart here on this council to value the homeless shelter and the Humane Society alike. The Humane Society comes with its own value of, like I said, you know, a blanketed canopy of concern where you don't have pests. We have left abandoned properties years ago. I kind of got in a little bit of a hearsay who's responsible for cats and rodent populations building in the community. The city really wanted to take no accountability for it in the sense of helping citizens bring down the count on those pests, or how we look at them as pests. Not having a funded Humane Society or even just a city helped Humane Society, I do think poses a threat to the public, as well as the homeless shelter. And I think that all just speaks for itself there with our town and its subsequential problem in nomadics. I understand we want to serve people here directly and the city wants to prioritize people here directly, but part of doing that is keeping these things that protect them going. And that includes the Humane Society and the homeless shelter. It sounds like there's a $250,000 allocation from water in capital funds kind of being reallocated to the police department per se, or the fire department. It sounds like a good plan in a weird way. Like, we're gonna take $250,000 from a reserve and then we're gonna give the police department and the fire department $100,000 each for a new car and a fire
That
truck.
money doesn't go to police or fire, that money goes to balance the general budget.
Right, most definitely, but capital set aside from nonprofit or other chapters, most of us peering in see this as a shift in money internally. And so that being said, like, however you guys can manage to do that, that's great, and this 8% sounds wonderful right now, because I think part of the reason why I was gonna speak earlier was just bringing that these prior budgets are really high due to special agendas. And I hope that we don't have as many special agendas going forward, like the football field, things like that, sports center. Yeah.
That wasn't here.
But they still asked for a levy increase.
It wasn't us though. Just
Right.
I wanna make that sure that's clear.
No,
Yeah,
I know, I
so
get
people don't
that,
get
but what I'm saying is that overall, these things, like, you know, our administrator was saying, they go hand in hand with one another. They're not directly correlated or represent one another, but they do go hand in hand with one another on increase. And so that's why I'm just saying, you know, these past levy increases, we see that out of different agendas already, so it is vital that we don't see it out of the city agenda. I'll reserve my time, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Butch.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, just a reminder then, tomorrow night, special council meeting to pass proposed levy.
5:30?
5:30.